Good afternoon and welcome to another iteration of the Global Alpha podcast. It's been a couple of weeks. We had a public holiday last Monday, so we didn't have a edition then. But there's a fair bit has happened over the past weekend, so I think it's a very good point to start back up the Global Alpha podcast. We saw really the first correction since April, I believe, proper correction since April in America, really due to some political moves.
It was a bit of a big move on Friday night, Saturday morning Australia, right?
Absolutely. So a lot of people were expecting that move. I reckon so. However, it looks like the market's pretty keen to bounce back. We've seen the futures become a fairly buoyant towards the open tonight. So we'll have to wait and see what the US does. But the Aussie market doesn't seem to have taken too drastic of a hit today either.
By the dip.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, really, at this point, it's just all about time frame, I guess. Can you get in quick enough to take advantage of those lower prices? We saw some really big names that we love come off a fair bit. Tesla's came off about 5%, Nvidia around the same, and AMD had a lot more room to move. It fell off about 8%. So, not really for myself any reason to panic here. Just a bit of a buying session on some of these names that you want to be holding.
I guess Trump back into the main spotlight again. I think there's a little bit of he's a bit more bark than bite this time because it seems like he's already kind of retracted what he said. Because it all started about with the Chinese imposing a bit more restrictions on rare earth, which is a critical choke point for the rest of the world, right?
Absolutely.
So
such a wide application. With rare earths.
Exactly. And I think in terms of the global monopoly, right? Like I think China just has such a tight hold on refinement because there's deposits across other places in the world. And I remember they talking about in Greenland where they found like a massive deposit. And I think that's why Trump's so interested in getting Greenland in, basically.
Absolutely. I think most of the rare earths generally fall into those other countries, China, Brazil, I believe, those sort of parts of the world in Africa. So it'd be good for America to have control over their own supply to some degree.
I guess Trump's only leverage point at the moment is tariffs, and so that's all he can do, right? So that's a blunt tool, but you can only throw it around so many times, and I think you can see it in the market where basically everyone's discounted it because they're looking at it and going, well, how serious is he about implementing these? He said basically the 1st of November, but it's again going back to the same situation in April. So I don't know how likely it is actually to come through.
Absolutely. And I think, this is very similar, as you said, very similar to what happened in April, and it's really wait and see at this point. But in response, I think we've seen as you said, Trump's done a bit of backpedaling today. It looks like it's really well and done from here, unless there's anything drastic occurring tonight.
Absolutely. Usually the Asian session is the panic session. So you come in, you see the US global news and it's sell. But it seems that everyone's looking at it as a buy opportunity. So, looking on Friday night, it was a pretty massive reaction because the S&P 500 dropped about 3 and a bit percent. NASDAQ was close to 4%. Massive risk off with Bitcoin falling as well. Precious metals actually stayed relatively buoyant.
Isn't that something you'd expect in that environment where, you see the wider market coming off? And that's what we've been advising, gold, silver, stores of values.
Absolutely. I think especially gold, it generally holds well over those geopolitical instabilities. Silver sometimes gets a little bit hammered on that initial move because it's a risk-off proxy, right? So, I think it'll be interesting to see how the US opens. Oh, it's a public holiday tonight, is it?
I do believe they're trading tonight. It's just Columbus Day. So
Yeah.
as far as I'm aware, they will be trading occurring tonight. So yeah, I'm very keen to see. I think, Friday, absolutely, we were due for a correction, and there would have been plenty of profits to be taken across the board by investors. So there was room on that downside. Tonight will be the real tell. Will that downside continue, or will the markets bounce? And it's looking like it's going to be buoyant again.
Yeah, exactly. You got to bear into context, like from the April lows, how much we've actually gone. It's a tiny blip in the relative scheme of things.
Yeah. So would you call that a correction then, what we saw on Friday, or is it just going to be a blip in the chart and we're back to new highs moving forward?
Mate, I think with the scale of the move, it's kind of like just profit taking, right? As I don't think it's. I mean, the volatility's been so low, and it's just been grinding up high for so long. I guess the question is like, how sustained will this move be? And again, I think the market is basically discounting what he's saying at the moment, because
taking it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly right. Because how serious is it about following through? Because the whole reason he didn't follow through in April is because it'll jeopardize the largest trade channel in the world, right? So
it's interesting as well with Trump how the smallest post on Twitter can do a global reaction like we saw on Friday. I think that's a very interesting point. Probably the first time in the world that we've seen these sort of impacts from social media that can drive the markets down. I don't know how good that is for the markets as a whole, that one man can hold that much power with a few words on a blog post.
Exactly right. He controls the media at the moment. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So moving on, there we can see the bounce on the futures that we were looking at this morning. Looks like there's a pretty strong gap up there. Not going to retrace completely what was lost, but looks like it's moving in that upward direction as we were saying before. So the bulletproof market seems to continue.
Yeah, it's looking for any excuse to buy the dip.
Yeah. And I had to look, even with friends and family, I had people contacting me over the weekend saying, is now the time to buy, whether it was crypto or in the markets. And, if you can get that favorable price, great. But if it's starting to gap up like that, it's going to be quite difficult for a lot of people to be buying, actually taking advantage of that dip, I think.
I think so too. Cool. Going on to, I guess, US stocks. Did you see any good movements over the week?
Well, I'm more looking forward at the moment. We're coming into earnings, the new earnings season. So, we got the regular starters, the US bank rounds, we got Intuitive Surgical and TSMC. So really was more looking forwards after we saw the drop on Friday last week that sort of whittled away any gains that we saw, or a lot of gains we saw moving up into that point. So yeah, looking forward, we saw TSMC being probably one of our favorites that are coming up this week as a global alpha recommendation. And we haven't changed the recommendation. We're holding through for that earnings period because I think AI and semiconductors are going to do very well through this year, and we've seen it time and time again with that earnings.
I don't think that it changes anything in the AI thematic, right? And you can see that big dislocation where it's like, obviously you had a correction on Friday as well. But you're just seeing it power ahead regardless of where the market is. I think TSMC will be interesting. I think that core chip demand will continue, right?
I think they're really well positioned. It's similar to a Micron in a way where, they're on the supply side. They take advantage of multiple companies' successes and they're doing the actual hardware production. So, if the space is buoyant, generally speaking, I'd assume TSM to be buoyant as well. TSMC, sorry.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's and they supply the core wafers to NVIDIA, to AMD, like basically any chips, right? Like advanced chips.
Absolutely.
It's got TSMC in it.
It's a bit of a tongue twister. But yeah, so I think they're in a really good space. Unlike, you're not buying AMD hoping that only AMD's chips are going to be successful. You can buy TSM, that's the producer, and you're covering a lot of the other, indirectly, the other investments.
Makes sense. Makes sense. What about US banks?
Well, look, they usually are the start for the earnings season in America when they turn around that earnings cycle.
Yeah.
Not an area that I pay very close attention to, but it is a good indicator for how things are going generally, I'd say. Not any recommendations on any of those that are reporting this week, but definitely going to use that as an indicator for the season as a whole.
Yeah.
And then finally, Intuitive coming up, which is one that we have been covering for a period of time now. Medical's had a bit of a tough run up until now, so really just want to see how it's been going in that more headwind-oriented market.
Yeah, it's interesting because we did see a rebound in the last couple of weeks in healthcare. I mean, it's been so battered again with the Trump administration policies. But I guess if we do end up going into a correction period, these healthcare stocks are actually not too bad to be in, because that rotation from these growth stocks into defensive stocks, these are very undervalued at the moment. And potentially Intuitive Surgical could be a good play.
I think so. It'd be just really cool to watch and just see how they've developed over the last 3 months.
Yeah, that would be good.
It's pretty red.
Yeah. There's like a little blip of green. Oh,
yeah.
It's a Pepsi. Oh, yeah. I think it's just again the consumer staples, right? Like whenever we get these sell-offs, there's a rotation to staples, healthcare, and if we see it continue, that might be a space where it provides a little bit of shelter.
Pretty logical. We've seen where all the money's been going lately. It's gone red, and then where things have sort of been trading sideways, they're the only things that we're sort of seeing green in. In that space.
Yeah, I think this. What's your thoughts? Like, you reckon for the rest of the week it'll continue to sell off, or?
I really need to wait and see tonight with the futures having that gap up. The Japanese session, pretty buoyant. Our session's been trading pretty well. We're very follow the leader in Australia, and generally, we see a sell off on a Friday, that sell off follows through to us on the Monday morning.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not been that. It's not been that drastic today. So I'm pretty confident with Trump backpedaling in a few ways that he has, that we'll see just a return to that upward trajectory tonight. But again, I'm not. Sorry.
Back to business as usual, right?
Well, I hope so, but it's wait and see for now, and we'll know from pretty quickly into tonight's session.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's have a look. Next week up for earnings again, as we mentioned. The big banks are all the financials. And they've actually done really well over the last year. Like steady, obviously not as well as the tech sector. But yeah, they've actually not done too bad.
Yeah. And then, towards the end of the week, you can see a couple of healthcares and tech as well. Johnson & Johnson, not one we cover, and Intuitive being in the healthcare space. But as you said, it might be healthcare's time to shine.
Come back from the dead. Let's have a look. I think that's it. And then in terms of core figures, we've got Powell's speech next week as well. Any opinion on rate cuts, or do you reckon Powell's still in a very dovish mood, or?
I think we're going to. Well, we saw cuts in America and then no cuts here recently. I hope it doesn't continue, but it could be the case.
Yeah.
And the economic figures coming out of both sides are somewhat different.
Yeah.
But again, it's not my area of expertise, so I don't want to speak for.
Yeah, no, it's been fairly well. The big outlier for Australia has been the inflation figure, right? So like basically, it came out a little bit hotter than what everyone was expecting. So I think I think the RBA is really ready to just sit on their hands and see how it goes. But again, I think the US, there's a bit of political pressure on Powell, right? So I think Trump's going to keep drumming the rate cut story. So I do think that there's probably still a couple of rate cuts come in the US. Yeah,
I guess our market here is more influenced as well because we've got the housing crisis, I guess. And, if you cut rates too aggressively, we're going to propel that crisis forward. And we've introduced 5% deposits now. So any of these things could, send that housing market back into an upward spiral.
It's blazing hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess, Rich, do you have anything else for the rest of the week?
Not really. I think people should be pretty cautious tonight, but as we see the market sort of pick which direction it's moving in, which generally speaking, if the bulletproof market continues, it'll be in the upward trajectory. Deploying funds is key, I think, here, and knowing when to buy and sell the right stocks and good stocks is important.
Yeah, keep a little bit of ammo up your sleeves, right?
Yeah, definitely cash on the sidelines, and now's the time where you can see the advantage of having that. We never advise people to be 100% allocated in funds, and of course we guide people into when to buy and sell these particular high quality names. So I think if anyone needs guidance with any of those things, give us a call and we can definitely assist you.
Yeah, that's a really good point because for us in-house and our clients, we're doing a little bit of cleanup this week, where if we had stocks that have done incredibly well, taking some profit, as well as some stocks, where you don't really want to have that risk exposure, probably cleaning that up a bit as well, right? Because I think you'll get a better opportunity in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next week.
Be safe in the markets.